Started. Good morning, everyone, and welcome. We are starting what I hope will be a series of weekly briefings, updates from the city on a number of different items. And our purpose here is to make sure that we're getting good, regular information out to the community on a whole range of things. So today, we're going to start with Public Health, Madison and Dane County, to give us an update on where we are with the COVID-19 pandemic. And then we'll move on from there. So I'm going to turn the podium over to Bonnie from Public Health.
Thank you. So I'm here today to give an update from Public Health, Madison and Dane County. And what we know today is the total tests that we have in Madison, Dane County is 96,370. Of those tested, 2,657 have been confirmed. What have we learned? In the last 2 weeks of June, that's June 20th through July 6th, we learned that 63% of these cases were tested at the community site at the Line Energy Center. 57% of these cases were young adults between the ages of 18 and 25. 43% of these cases interviewed reported attending a gathering or party with people outside of their household. And of the total 306 cases, 239 of them were from bars and restaurants. This was a critical time here in Madison-Dane County with the surge of COVID-19. And Public Health Madison-Dane County responded last week with their emergency order number 7. That emergency order number 7 was targeted specifically from what the data was showing us about the places and spaces where these positive cases were occurring in the bars and restaurants. The bars and restaurants in emergency order number 7 were reduced to 25% occupancy indoors. And we also reduced the mass gathering from 10 indoors and 25 outdoors. I think this is important because it shows that public health is using our data and science to create targeted approaches to the challenges that are specific to the spread of COVID-19 in our community, and allowing us to keep the businesses open and these spaces safe for our community. This week, we also had more information from the CDC that was emerging from science and laboratory testing that showed that face coverings are now a simple and effective way to prevent the spread of COVID-19. With this new emerging information, we also made another emergency order, number 8, and this will be in effect on Monday, June 13th at 8 a.m. This order is requiring everyone that's 5 years old and up to wear a face covering that covers the nose and mouth when in public, including in waiting in line, public transportation, and at businesses and healthcare settings. In order to encourage our community to follow these orders, we have come up with a hashtag MaskUpMadison, hashtag MaskUpDane, and hashtag MaskUpUW. This is a social media campaign where individuals and businesses can share out their excitement on the importance of wearing masks and why it's important to them. So we encourage you to participate in this campaign and support one another on this really effective way to prevent the spread of COVID-19 in our community. If we all do this together, this simple way of preventing source transmission by protecting the respiratory droplets, I'm wearing it to protect you, you're wearing it to protect me. This simple way can be very impactful, and it can help prevent the spread of COVID, but also support our businesses in the way that we want to in our community. Lastly, we have implemented DHS new platform where you can do pre-registration on your smartphone or on your computer prior to going to the mass testing site. This is going to increase our efficiency at the mass testing site, where we can get 360 people through in an hour versus the average of 150 that has been happening. I went there today to test it out. I was able to pre-register on my smartphone while in line, and it took about 30 minutes. So this is going to not only improve the efficiency through the testing, it's also going to improve the efficiency of getting your test results back, the ability to have our contact tracers start sooner on that contact tracing, and again, to help the spread of COVID-19 in our community. I leave you with public health using science and data to drive the orders that we are writing and the necessary the necessary work that we need to do to prevent the spread of COVID-19, to keep our community safe, and to get us back to our daily lives in the way that we can.
Thank you. So I encourage everyone, as always, to go to the testing site at the Alliant Energy Center. As you heard, you can register online on your smartphone. Please do get tested. You can obviously get tested with your primary health care provider as well. And as you can see, we are all supporting the mask order by wearing our masks, and encourage everybody to do that as well. Next, we're going to hear from Chief Vic Wall for an update from the police department.
Thank you, Mayor. Just two main things that I would like to give updates on this morning. The first is just an update on an incident that happened yesterday downtown on State Street. Midday, our officers responded to a report of a stabbing at Peace Park and located an individual that had sustained a very serious stab wound to his torso. Officers were able, in pretty quick order, to identify the suspect and apprehend him a short time later in the area. He's been arrested and will be charged with attempted homicide at this point. The second thing I'd like to talk about is just to recap some of the data and facts about the recent spike in gun violence that we've seen. In the last week and a half or so, we've clearly seen a real spike in gun violence here in Madison. We've seen more than 15 shots fired incidents, 2 fatal shootings. We've had 8 residences hit by gunfire, 7 vehicles hit by gunfire, and we recovered about 150 shell casings, reflecting gunfire from both rifles and handguns. And as we've been able to take a little bigger look now at some data, we can see that it's not really just a spike, but it's a trend. Looking at June totals for shots fired, there were 29 shots fired incidents in the month of June. And that is the highest monthly total of shots fired incidents we've seen since we've been tracking that metric. And in the month of May, the number was also high, one of the highest monthly totals that we've seen. The second quarter of 2020, the number of shots fired incidents reflects an almost 80% increase from last year during the second quarter. So it's clearly a very disturbing trend. It's very alarming to us. And with that quantity of gunfire and shots being fired in the city, we're very fortunate that there weren't more fatalities and that there haven't been more injuries. Some of these homes, many of these homes that have had shots fired into them have been occupied both by adults and by children. And there's been incidents where cars moving on public streets have been exchanging gunfire in broad daylight. Obviously, this creates a tremendous amount of risk to the community and to the public, and it's something that we should not tolerate in our community. Our violent crime unit is coordinating the investigations on all of these incidents. We identified the involved parties in the 2 fatal shootings last week, and they were taken into custody within 2 days. And we're continuing to work on the other shots fired incidents and investigating, identifying suspects, and we'll be moving forth with arrests and prosecutions as soon as we're able to hold those people accountable for this violence in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief, for highlighting that very disturbing trend, which I think we're seeing all around this country, and is very much a concern, I think, for all of us. I'm going to give a few updates on other things going on around the city, and I want to note for members of the media that if you are tuned in, you can use the media site to ask your questions at any point, and we will take questions at the end, assuming we have time. So a number of different updates. First of all, I want to note that the Alder work group continues to meet and work on implementation of the independent police auditor position and the civilian oversight body. Their next meeting is July 11th at 8:30 a.m. The Public Safety Review Committee has formed a work group to review MPD use of force policies, and I have asked the City Attorney's Office to work closely with them. They are particularly looking at the 8 can't wait list of policies, and as of right now, Madison has 7 of those 8 policies in place. The body-worn camera feasibility review committee is also continuing to meet, and their next meeting is 5:30 p.m. on July 16th. The Police and Fire Commission is looking for your input on the search for our next police chief. Their next meetings are July 13th at 5:30 p.m. and July 22nd at 12 noon. Their dedicated email address for the search process is policechiefsearch@cityofmadison.com. That's all one word, policechiefsearch@cityofmadison.com. Because it has been 10 months since Chief Koval retired, I have asked them, the Police and Fire Commission, to expedite this process and to identify a new chief within 90 days. The Commercial Ownership Assistance Program, which is a program that we've proposed to support businesses in our community, is going to be in front of the Finance Committee on July 20th. That meeting starts at 4:30 p.m. We know that business and property ownership is a vital pathway to economic empowerment in our community. And in order for Madison to make meaningful progress in addressing racial disparities in the city, we have to go beyond programs that are focused on addressing basic needs, although those are important, and direct more resources and strategies to building wealth and economic empowerment among communities that are not currently sharing in our city's prosperity. So this program, the Commercial Ownership Assistance Program, is designed to address these interrelated issues by identifying, supporting, and capitalizing business owners who are seeking to purchase or develop commercial space. So I'm hopeful that that will proceed through the Finance Committee and to the Council and be approved. I also want to mention that we are partners in the Kiva Madison or Kiva Greater Madison program, which provides zero interest capital to local small businesses. So if there are businesses out there that are looking to participate in this program, please contact our Economic Development Department. This is a really exciting program that we've made available. I also want to remind folks that I partnered with the mayors of Wisconsin's other 4 largest cities to secure a combined $6.3 million in nonprofit grants to fund the Wisconsin Safe Voting Plan. The grants, which are awarded by the nonpartisan Center for Tech and Civic Life, will help each of our municipalities administer elections this year in the midst of the deadly coronavirus pandemic. Madison will receive $1.2 million to support safe, secure, and fair elections in August and November. I'm really grateful to the center for supporting us both with this funding and with technical assistance. And I want to thank, in particular, the clerk's office for all of the hard work they did, not just in the April election, but then in running an equity analysis on the results of that election process and crafting that into a successful grant proposal. I also want to run through just the status of some of our city services. This information is all available at cityofmadison.com, but in the interest of more people being aware of what's going on, our parks are mostly open. Drinking fountains are closed, although we're in discussions about reopening some of them. Under the current public health orders, medium and high-risk contact field sports are not allowed, so the field reservation process is not currently open. Many restrooms in parks are closed, although they are starting to reopen some high-use park locations. Our splash parks are closed. Goodman Pool will be opening as of July 15th. Old Brook Botanical Gardens are open. Basketball courts are open for play with members of your immediate household only. Our beaches are open, but please check their status online. Playgrounds, skate park, tennis and pickleball courts, disc golf, and golf courses are all open with additional precautions in place to prevent the spread of COVID-19. And boat launches are installed at Marshall, Old Brook, Olin, Tenney, and Warner. For all of these things, in the case where a permit is required, that permit process is online only. Our libraries have started opening for public computing, available by appointment only at every location except Monroe Street Library. To schedule an appointment, call 608-315-5151. And those appointments are available Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. The libraries are also offering curbside pickup, and all libraries are accepting returns. I also want to remind folks that we have excellent online collections and programs, and encourage you to visit the library website to learn more about those. And finally, our reference librarians are available to help with resources at that same number, 608-315-5151, between, 11 and 7 on Monday through Friday, and 12 to 5 Saturday through Sunday. And they do a great job of directing you to the resources you need. Parking, I want to mention that we have a $5 daily maximum fee in all city-owned public parking garages, and the first hour of parking is free on Saturdays. Non-metered parking restrictions are temporarily suspended citywide. That's the residential permit areas, the 1 and 2 hour time limits in non-metered areas, and the street sweeping and Clean Streets, Clean Lakes program restrictions. All other on-street metered and non-metered parking restrictions are in effect and enforceable. In the streets department, our drop-off sites at Badger Road, Sycamore Ave, and South Point Road are open with limited capacity and hours. Mulch is available at the Olin Ave site, and brush collection and tree planting are happening, but they're happening on a delayed schedule in order to keep our workers safe. Metro Transit has increased the capacity on buses to a maximum of 25 passengers on each bus. Buses are operating on a modified Saturday service schedules. Fare collection is still suspended, and customers are required to board and exit the bus using the rear doors, except for riders who need the ramp, who should still enter through the front. Our public buildings are closed for the most part, but most city services are available online or through the mail. And there is a drop box outside both the city-county building for documents that cannot be sent by mail. The clerk's office is open for licensing, elections, and notary services. To access these services, please call 608-266-4603. We have a number of how-to guides to help our community in this difficult time, dealing with employment, food access, internet access, and other things. That information is linked on the cityofmadison.com website on the front page under the Community Resources link. I want to note a few upcoming meetings. On Monday the 13th, the Plan Commission meets at 5:30 p.m. On Tuesday the 14th, the Common Council Executive Committee meets at 4:30 p.m. and the Common Council meets at 6:30 p.m. And then on Wednesday the 15th at 5 p.m., both the Economic Development Committee and the Transportation Policy and Planning Board meet, and at 5:30, the Alcohol License Review Committee meets. All these meetings are taking place online and can be found on the city's website. And finally, we're going to have an update from our Economic Development Division on our new streetery program.
Hello, my name is Megan Blakehorst, and I'm the Street Vending Coordinator in the Office of Business Resources, which is located in the Economic Development Division. I am one of the co-leads on the streetery program with my colleague in planning, Rebecca Kinnear. In March, under a mayoral executive order, we waived all vending fees to reimbursed our vendors for the season that began on April 15th. This included fees for food carts, art and craft vendors, sidewalk cafes, and merchant vendors. This eased some of the pressure financially for those businesses during this time that they were closed, but we knew we needed to do more to help these businesses survive now so they can thrive in the future. And we're grateful that we had the opportunity to move forward quickly on these programs. The streetery program began as a direct response to the needs of restaurants and taverns around the city of Madison as they began to move from full closures and curbside pickup delivery only to outdoor dining and limited indoor capacity. This is to aid the restaurants and taverns who have disproportionately been impacted by COVID-19 pandemic. This citywide program allows temporarily for restaurants to expand their outdoor dining onto public sidewalks, streets, parking areas, and privately owned parking lots. We're doing this through a streamlined administrative process, which is enabling establishments to expand their capacity while administering physical distance guidelines. All participants are required to maintain good practices to prevent the further community spread of COVID-19. Through March and April, staff and independent departments did a lot of research, listened to our community and our business operators on what they needed to open. In mid-May, we set forth to create a program. And in mid-May, an interdepartmental staff team met to begin the Streetery program. Under this additional emergency order, we created and implemented a program leading through the Memorial Day weekend. We are thankful that this was able to happen quickly. The staff team, the Streetery program was approved by the Common Council on June 16th of 2020 to temporarily allow these restaurants, taverns, and other establishments to expand their footprint into these right-of-ways in publicly or in privately owned spaces. In many cases, this also includes the expansion of alcohol licensed premises on a temporary basis. It also waived all fees required and involved in these types of approvals. All administrative approvals are strictly temporary and will end on October 25th, or a date in which public health allows restaurants and bars to return to normal operation, whichever is sooner. The program was designed to meet the needs of the businesses across the entire city of Madison. There are 5 options for these programs, and staff are working on a one-to-one basis with business owners to create an inviting and safe experience for the community. These opportunities include sidewalk cafe expansions, which allows cafes to expand width-wise on the sidewalk and terraces, and using the public space for that. Examples you might see around town would include Deluxe, Paul's Club, Blue Moon, Taiwanese Little Eats. They mentioned on their Facebook page recently that thanks to the Streetery program, they've been able to expand their outdoor dining to almost equal with what they had inside. This is helping them survive. We are looking at urban plazas such as the Rotary Plaza, top of State Street, and Library Mall as opportunities for expanded outdoor dining. There has been a number of businesses that have been involved with getting seating in private parking lots, such as La Togara, Daisy Cafe, Weary Traveler, Garver Feed Mill, Dottie Dumplings Dowry, and Brothers 3 are some examples. There's many, many more. Zoning has approved about 26 outdoor seating opportunities and have many, many more in the queue. We're looking at a number of on-street cafes. You might see Ancora on King Street, Lucille, Wolf's, Davino, Youngblood, which is a brand new restaurant that just opened up. Canteen and Cento are some of the businesses that are taking advantage of having dining in the right-of-way and in the parking lanes. We also have a number of cafe zones, such as on the 100 block of East Main and 100 block of South Pinckney Street. These are lane closures where we're closing off the entire parking lane, and in some cases, like on South Pinckney Street, closing to all traffic. We're excited to announce that 100 block of West Main will be opening up their cafe zone this weekend. And then to add to this program, we included the State Street closure. So beginning on Friday evenings after the last rush hour bus at around 6:45 p.m. through Monday morning at 5 a.m., State Street will be closed to vehicular traffic. This provides a great opportunity for people to spread out and pay attention to their physical distancing, as well as allowing restaurants and merchant vendors to be out in the street with a relative Maxwell Street days feel, although we want to maintain that distancing and pay attention to safety while you're out. But this has been a really great opportunity to temporarily try a closure of State Street and see what things may be offered. To give some of our stats, we have, like I said, over 26 streeteries out in parking lots. We have over 41 in the right-of-way, including the 3 cafe zones and 8 in parking lots. And the goal of this program, like I said, is to allow expanded boundaries of these operators to provide opportunities for outdoor dining while allowing physical distancing. And in some cases, some of these businesses have been able to expand their outdoor seating capacity. Under no circumstances, though, I do want to remind people that this program is not meant to create gathering spaces and large social gatherings. It is really to provide restaurants and bars and taverns opportunities to have seating in the outdoors where it is safe for them to participate in their business and allow them expanded capacity. I want to encourage our community to visit our local restaurants and taverns, and I am thankful for our community's support in following the requirements, such as being seated at your table while enjoying your food or beverage of choice. These business owners are doing an amazing job adjusting with this ever-changing environment. Please consider helping a local business through this very challenging time by taking advantage of the Street Eatery outdoor eating program or pick up food at your local restaurant over the summer. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Megan. And I want to second that. Please join me in supporting our small and local businesses who are having a very tough time because of COVID-19. All right, we have a few minutes to take some questions. Linda? Okay.
So, Chief, we have a couple of questions for you. I will read them one at a time, and then you can respond, and I go back. What is the status of the hit and run case involving Brendan O'Neill and Alice Carter? What will the MPD refer charges?
So we've already made an arrest in that case, so that the driver, the suspect in that case, was arrested, was booked into jail, and that is how charges are referred for him. So it's now in the hands of the district attorney's office to make final charging decisions and then move forward with the prosecution.
Okay. This is a long one. You talked about the trend of gun violence lately in Madison. Do investigators think there is some sort of connection between some of these incidents? Are they connected to certain groups, or do all the recent shootings seem to be random and not related to each other?
So it's, I think, as best we can tell at this point, clearly some of the shootings that we've seen are related. So there's some clusters of them that appear to be related and connected with sort of the same parties going back and forth and retaliating. I think there's others that aren't. It seems that very few of these I would describe as truly random. So we think they're all probably targeted in some way, shape, or form. But even though they're not random, of course, they still are creating a pretty significant risk to the community with that level of gunfire going through our residential areas and onto our public streets.
Thank you. The next question for you is, what is your response to the elder who is proposing a ban to MPD using non-lethal weapons?
So, I think my perspective on this is that measure and some of the others that have been put forth in front of the Common Council will have the exact opposite of impact of what they might be thought to have. And basically, you restrict our options, you restrict our capacity to resolve situations with less lethal and non-lethal force options, and then you increase the opportunity for bad outcomes. And that's really what the problem and my concern is. If those ordinances were to be enacted, to say that you would significantly curtail our capacity to respond to large crowds, violent crowds, looting, that sort of thing would be an understatement. Basically, we would not be able to do that. And I don't think that's an outcome or a situation that anybody would desire in our city, particularly after what we've gone through the last 6 weeks.
2 more questions, and you're free to go. You've asked a research group to review your department's response to the recent civil unrest. What led to you asking for that review, and how well do you think your department responded?
Well, the entity you're referring to is the Quattrone Center. They're with the University of Pennsylvania Law School, and we've actually been working with them previously, going back to last year, to do a Sentinel event review. So those wheels had already been in motion, and that's partially in response to some of the recommendations in the OIR report and from the ad hoc committee. So that process was in motion, and we had anticipated on asking them or having them review an event from last year. Now, a few days into the unrest this year, I immediately recognized that this was an unprecedented sort of set of events here in Madison, and having an outside entity look at that would be much more valuable than the event we were looking at from last year. And when I look at sort of the mechanics and the logistics of what is necessary for us to respond to these, particularly the first 3 days of unrest, and it's really remarkable whether you are talking about bringing in police departments from across the state, interfacing with the National Guard, dealing with an unprecedented level of crowd size and violence and property damage. There's just a lot of things in there that are really ripe for independent review and for identifying areas for improvement. Now, I think as we've been looking at these things relatively informally thus far, because that's all we've had the capacity to, certainly I recognize a lot of areas where we have room to improve and things we could do better on in terms of how we've responded, our deployment, our organization, our intelligence, our information sharing. So there's a lot of room for improvement, and I think that shouldn't be a surprise given the unprecedented scale of these disturbances and the response that was required from us. I'll say that I think the men and women of MPD who are on the front lines and doing the real heavy lifting, if you will, during these events have performed admirably, and the dedication and commitment that they've shown to the committee, or to the community, to the city, to the department has just been remarkable. They've been working long hours, no days off, staffing holds, extended periods, a huge impact on them and their families, and under very challenging conditions with a lot of anger directed towards them. So I'm very proud of the way they've responded and grateful for their service.
Okay. The other question for you is there any update on the ongoing hate crime investigation? Have you received any tips in that case? Is the incident captured on any traffic camera? What have you found?
And for that case, I'll just say that it remains an open and ongoing investigation. We have our personnel actively working the case. The FBI is assisting us as we work that case, and it remains open, active, but beyond that, I don't have any further comment.
And just one more question, Chief. With the recent stabbing in Peace Park, how do you work on a plan after safety concerns in that area?
Well, it's, there's a number of challenges to policing and preserving public safety in the sort of the entertainment district that exist in the best of times. And here we're dealing with sort of daily protests, which put a great deal of stress and strain on our staffing and our capacity, and also working in the midst of an ongoing pandemic, which creates challenges for us, particularly in the area of the ability to engage the community and develop relationships or work on existing relationships that we have down in the State Street area. So we're going to continue to do that. I'm hopeful that we'll continue to be able to move more of our personnel away from these other duties and back to their standard assignments, which will allow for more coverage and more of sort of the community policing outreach things that we're accustomed to doing, not only citywide, but particularly in the State Street area. And I'm hoping that that's the direction we're trending.
Thank you, Chief. Public health?
Public health?
We also have a number of questions for you. The first is, what happens if you don't wear a mask once the order is in place? What's the enforcement component? Is there a fine, stuff like that?
If you are not wearing a mask because you are unable because of a medical condition or a disability, accommodations will have to be made for you. There also might be settings where wearing a mask could be unsafe. For instance, in a manufacturing setting where your straps might get caught up in equipment, that would have to be addressed by occupational health and safety personnel. However, for individuals and employees that are making a decision not to wear a mask for other reasons that are not of the ones I mentioned, that would be going against the orders. And anyone who is not following that could, ideally, the public health wants to educate, encourage everyone to wear masks, because as we all wear masks together and we're in this together, we're protecting one another and preventing the spread of COVID. However, for those that are not in compliance, we would educate first, and thereafter there could be citations. And in the city of Madison, There is a dollar amount for that citation, and I need to look that up. But there would be a monetary citation of a couple $100s, and I don't have the exact amount, but that is on our website.
Thank you. The next question for you is, do those gatherings, which you talked about earlier, include protests at all? Do you have any general idea whether protests are contributing to spread or those gatherings are separate?
What I do know is what our data shows. Our data, looking back from June 20th to July 6th, we had 43% of cases that were interviewed reporting attending a gathering or party with people outside of their household. 24% of those cases were associated with a cluster, and those clusters came from bars and restaurants, from college-age housing, sororities, fraternities, and near-campus apartments.
Thank you. The next question for you is, as public health is working closely with schools on the fall plan, what is the new recommendation for schools as we see an increase in cases and a mask mandate? Has anything changed because of the recent surge in cases?
I would say that right now we're working closely with our state partners, and we are having those conversations, and we're continuing to use science and data and work closely together to make those determinations. And at this point, I don't have any more information on that.
I think those are the questions we have for you right now, Bonnie. Okay, and we have some questions for the mayor. You have asked for a new police chief in 90 days. Is that realistic? What is the rush?
I would not say there's a rush. It's been 10 months since Chief Koval retired, and I understand that it's been difficult to work through the pandemic, but I think it's only fair to the interim chief and to the department and to the city that we move forward with this search process as expeditiously as possible. I share the Police and Fire Commission's commitment to making sure that this is a community-engaged process, and I'm really grateful that they are working hard to reach out to the community. And again, I encourage everyone to interact with the Police and Fire Commission either at one of their scheduled meetings or by emailing them at policechiefsearch@cityofmadison.com to share your thoughts on what we need in our next chief. But I do think that it's very important for us to move forward quickly to make sure that we have a permanent chief hired as soon as possible.
Thank you, Mayor. Next question. What is your reaction to the recall petition?
I'm focused every minute of every day on doing the job that the people of Madison elected me to do. As you heard, I hope, in today's briefing, we are working on a number of things in service of our community, and that is where my focus is right now.
And I think that was the last question for you.
All right. Well, thank you all for tuning in, and thanks to the folks who joined me today for sharing information. As I mentioned at the beginning, we do plan on making this a weekly event to update the community on the things that are going on within the city of Madison. So I hope you'll join us again next week. Thank you all.